All right. Welcome to Monday Motivation. I'm really glad you're here today. So tell me, have you ever reacted to something and later wondered, why did I say that? Or what am I going to do now? I said, I can't take the words back. Why did that affect me so much? Maybe it was a comment or your tone of voice or, a situation that seemed small on the surface but really hit your heart hard. Well, your body has reacted quickly. Your heart raced. You felt defensive, or maybe you shut down completely. If we haven't met before, my name is Terry Stirk. I am a wellness coach and author. I know a lot about triggers because I've had to learn from them. And I wrote about them in my book, Nurture Emotional Well-Being. I am a wellness coach and an author. I've learned coping skills to help heal myself so that I can serve women like you, those who have experienced challenging seasons. I want to help you nurture your wellness of body, mind, and spirit. So today we'll talk about when old pain takes over. Often it isn't really about the particular moment that's in front of us. It's really about something deeper. It's something that's unfinished from our past. Often it isn't really, it isn't something that's bothering us now, or at least we didn't think so. But we'll go deeper here so we can understand why this happens to us and how we can recognize these triggers before they control the present moment. So first, what is a trigger? It can be a really overused term, but a trigger isn't an emotion. A trigger is your nervous system remembering something that your mind may not consciously be thinking about. When you experience a traumatic event, your brain stores that information for a future purpose. And you, maybe not consciously, maybe you think, you're past that, you're healed. But research in trauma psychology shows that traumatic experiences are often stored in the body. Maybe you've heard about the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah, it's true. It keeps the score with sensations, reactions, survival patterns, not just your memory. And psychologist Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote the book, The Body Keeps Score, and he explains that trauma reshapes the nervous system's perception of safety. It does that to help us survive. So when something traumatic happens, the present resembles something painful from the past, and then your body reacts to that past event. You may not consciously even think about it at first. Before your mind has time to process the event with logic, reason, or perspective, a trigger is also not the event. It's the alarm system. It's your body telling you, hey, pay attention. A trigger is your body trying to protect you from something that no longer exists. It's a past experience that caused you great distress. Experiencing emotional triggers is similar to facing an approaching storm. Like in a storm, staying calm during the emotional upheaval is essential to maintain a sense of calm. As stated in Chapter 6 of my book, Nurture Emotional Well-Being for Women, some common triggers might include unresolved trauma. You know, a lot of us have had breast cancer. We've also had other traumas in our life. Maybe it's death of a loved one. Maybe it's issues with our children. So unresolved traumas need healing, or they will create triggers in the future. Disturbing memories, past fears. You know, we talk about anxiety when we have to go to the doctor. Well, that's because we went to the doctor before and got bad news. So here we go again. We're going back to the doctor. Stressful environments. Maybe you're not comfortable in crowds because of some situation that happened in the past. Or you've had interpersonal conflict that created stress in your life, and now that can trigger you. Loss, grief, sudden or planned changes. A scent or a specific sound. A taste, or something you see, or something you touch. All of your senses can trigger past memories. Even a specific person, someone you haven't seen or thought about in a while. But there you go, being triggered by it. So when old pain takes over, we typically fall into one of four trauma responses. Fight. We're ready with anger, sharpness, defensiveness. We're ready to protect ourselves. Or flight. We're overwhelmed from overwork. We avoid. We walk away. We escape. We don't deal with it. We just leave. Or freeze. We shut down, stop talking. We actually go numb, don't even feel what's being said. Or fawn. This is people-pleasing to restore safety. We start falling all over ourselves with apologies. So, you know, those are scientific responses that happen in our bodies. And I'm sure you've all experienced all four of them, depending on what's happening. These are not character flaws. They're perfectly human responses. They're survival strategies. At some point in your life, those responses protected you. They helped you cope. They helped you endure. They helped you survive. But what protected you then may not be serving you now. And that is something I discuss in Chapter 6 of Nurture Emotional Well-Being for Women. If we feel triggered often, then we're constantly in an emotional flux. You know, we're always going back and thinking about bad situations or past problems, past issues. I know when I started to write my first book, which was Thrive After Breast Cancer, that took me a long time to write. I was pulling out old journals and pulling information to put in the book, and I was triggered left and right, all over the place, just reviewing all that old information. So I knew it wasn't time to write a book yet. I had to put it away. Then came a time when I could talk about it. I started talking to women and sharing my stories. Then those stories no longer triggered me because they helped other women. You cannot heal when you refuse to notice. So if you just shove those emotional feelings under the rug, they're going to trigger you later. They'll come back out. That's where my book can help you identify and become aware. Awareness is the first step of unhealed pain. So what to do in this moment so that you don't go backwards and feel triggered? What do you do when you feel it happening? Well, your chest gets tight, maybe your heart starts beating fast, and your tone of your voice might change. You might start talking faster or louder. You might have tears in your eyes. When you feel old pain rising, your body will respond in a number of different ways. Maybe you can relate to this. So the first thing you need to do is pause and breathe. Pausing allows you to regulate before you respond. You cannot think clearly when your nervous system is activated. Pause slows your breathing. Place your feet firmly on the floor. And name 5 things that you see in the room. This helps bring you back to the present moment rather than taking your mind, back to the events that happened in the past. This grounds your body and your nervous system will relax. One theory explains that safety must be restored in your nervous system before rational thought can fully engage. And I think this is true. That's why pausing when you're triggered helps you slow down and re-engage and relax. So regulate first. Number 2, pray. Reflect. This is a way to separate the past from the present. Ask yourself, what is actually happening right now? Why does this remind me of something in the past? Is this reaction about today, or is it about something in the past? This question alone can interrupt that cycle and get your emotional state back to a calm, even keel. Often the intensity we feel isn't about the current situation. It's about an unresolved experience that still carries emotional weight. Maybe something minor happens and you just snap at your loved one. Then you feel shame because you feel bad that you got mad at them for absolutely nothing. What really happened is what they said triggered you. It wasn't what they did at that moment, but it's what happened in the past that made you feel the shame or the disappointment or the anger or whatever that emotion was. Healing does take time. So if you're having these triggers, it's good to reflect. Even if it happened, if a trigger happened to you a week or 2 ago, you can still take time now to reflect and think it through. The 3rd step is proceed. You do not have to react immediately. Giving yourself time, pausing and reflecting, and then choosing a mature response. This gives you time to say, I need a minute. Let me think about that. Can we come back to this another time? pause, pray, proceed. The 3 P's. Pausing is about emotional strength. Prayer gives you time for reflection. And then you can proceed. But you control these triggers. It's okay for you to say, I can't deal with this right now. Then you have time to go through the pause, the pray, the proceed steps. In fact, even the Bible reminds us in James verse 1:19, which is a lot of people's favorite, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. In fact, slowness is wisdom. Just slowing down when we're having a conversation and we feel triggered gives you time to pause and gives yourself dignity when you respond from your heart, from your present self, rather than from your wounded past. Triggers are uncomfortable, but they're also revealing. They show us where trust was broken or where boundaries were crossed, where fear still lives. These wounds are not revealed to shame us. They demonstrate our need for healing. You can think you're doing great until something triggers your response. So the goal is not to eliminate every trigger. That's impossible. You could be triggered by something that happened last week. Those are easy to identify. It's the subconscious things that maybe happened 10 years ago or 6 months ago, depending on where you're at in your journey. The goal is to recognize when old pain, speaks. That old pain shows up, and choose healing instead of some old habit. And if this topic resonates with you, I encourage you to visit Chapter 6 of my book, Nurture Emotional Well-Being for Women. I wrote this out of experience and interviewed a lot of women who deal with emotional pain and how they heal from it. But it gives you a lot of emotional awareness, helps you to identify your own emotional triggers, and then helps you heal, to grow from them. Growth takes courage, and you have the power. You are learning to respond from a place of wholeness. And that is how we thrive, not just survive. I thank you for joining me today. As always, I'm cheering you on.